Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to the stream. It is Monday, I know. It's Monday and it's 9:30 a.m, so that's doubly astonishing, frankly. But yes, hello, it's the 29th of March. We are here to do some studying. It's almost like that's what I do now. We're here to do some studying. We're going to catch up for a bit first, and then I have two articles that I need to read. I've skim-read both of them before, but this is to do like a proper full reading through, taking full notes and everything. And both of the articles are in some way about Senua's sacrifice. It's the two articles that I cited in my initial write-up. So we're gonna be doing that today. As you can see, we have Pretzel with us. Pretzel and I have come to an agreement. I have discovered the instrumental only button and we have discovered the lo-fi channel. There's a lot more channels in Pretzel now, and this one seems to be best. So I may have to do some volume adjustment as we go. I did look at the last stream's VOD and discover that I need to have my microphone much closer to my face. So also if you see me adjusting it, that's what I'm doing. I was like, wow, I'm really quiet in proportion to the music. So this is me trying to achieve that. I think that's partly what it is. That also has the bonus that the captions are then better because they never miss what I'm saying, because sometimes if the volume of my voice drops, they miss it. So yeah. Anyway, it's Monday, and as such, that means we've only actually missed 2 days together. But if you were here for Friday's stream, then you'll know that I was really struggling on Friday's stream. I had a big pain flare over a lot of last week. And my God, did I come to understand brain fog on Friday, because it was intense. And there's now video evidence of it on the internet forever. So that happened, and it was scary. It was really scary because I'm very uncomfortable when I don't know things and don't have control. So for me, brain fog is kind of those together. And where previously for me, brain fog had only really been forgetfulness, effectively. At that point, it really was, I couldn't focus and I couldn't remember what I was saying 10 seconds after I'd intended to say it, that sort of thing. So it was very scary and it was very intense, and I was then in a ton of pain all of the rest of the weekend and really tired. I did manage to do some things still, which was nice. I'm very grateful that I ended up bedbound for the rest of Friday on a day where I had lots of things to watch. Although if my team could have actually won their League of Legends best of 5, then that would have been appreciated. But no, I didn't get given that. What I did get given was a ahead of the curve for Heroic Denathrius on WoW. So shout out to my guild for helping me get that. I helped them get the first kill, but wasn't in the actual kill itself, so it felt real shit to not have it, and it took us a lot more tries. But we've done it, and that was excellent. That was one of the things I managed to do. That was last night, and my hands were really hurting afterwards, but it was definitely worth it. So yeah, there's what else to do? I actually did some work. I was really trying not to. I was trying really hard not to do work because I wasn't well. But what I did do was I went through my list of recommended games, because I was realising that I wanted to look at some games to play this week. I had a bit of budget in this month to buy some. And I wanted... Excuse me 1 second. I wanted to get... I'm still croaky. Oh my God, am I even croakier because it's even earlier? Maybe. I wanted to get that list of games into some more order, because I had it like in actually I'll show you, hold on. Just jump over to Notion quickly. So I had it in here in my initial thesis notes, like, and this is a mess, like there's duplicates in here. I hadn't researched all of them to see if they were what I wanted. So we've now got, in video games, we've now got a list of games to play, and some notes on them, in a couple of places. I don't know why I put an ampersand there, but slashes everywhere else. So I've got hi Bionic Worm. I've got, what did I get? I got Fractured Minds, Kind Words, and Heavy Rain. So we'll see. I'm not planning to do any of those on stream this week. This is not lo-fi. Whoever marked that song as lo-fi is wrong. Yeah, we're not going to do that on stream this week because I want to get this reading done. And also I need to get the slides done for my presentation. I finally got the email this morning from the person running it. I'll tell you what they need from me because I'm going to do that later. I need to send my title in, and my PhD title keeps changing, so I need to check what I last said it was and whether that's still applicable. And then a 2-sentence description of my talk, so a very brief abstract, and I need to send that in. He needs it to go out on Thursday, so I'm just going to do it today. But from that email I also saw that there are 4 people presenting. One of them is one of my friends, so that's cool, because I'm really excited to find out what his PhD actually is, because we've talked about it before and we went to a bunch of workshops together. When we were doing the application, we did the application together, and I still have only a very vague idea of what his PhD is about, so I'm excited to find that out. Yeah, so that happened. What else happened? I'm looking at my bullet journal. I actually did a bullet journal again. We'll see how that feels. Yeah, so we'll be doing reading today and then the slides on Wednesday. I'm planning to try, because I'm not going to play all of the games on stream. I'm not going to be able to. I've got so many games and I don't want to just show you gameplay, because that's kind of against the point of the channel. So I will be playing some games on my own, and then we'll see next week what we end up doing. I think that's it. Yeah, because I want to trial run my presentation with my mentor on Thursday. This is the last opportunity I'll have to do it. So I need to get everything done with it on the Wednesday. So we'll be doing slides then. I probably need to actually, no, everything's been on Zoom, hasn't it? This is going to be on Zoom as well. It's not going to be on Teams. I'm just thinking in terms of like the tech behind it and what I'm going to use to make slides and how it's going to display and stuff. Like whether I'm going to have the script like in the slides, like where you can do in PowerPoint, or whether I'm going to have it written out. But it depends how things are going to display. And I'll have to see and do some research. I'll try and do that before Wednesday. Maybe I'll make a note to do that tomorrow. And then I can look that up and I'll know before Wednesday, because I need to get it set up so we can do it together on stream. But yeah, that's the plan for today. I'm feeling okay today. I've had the pain has mostly been in my back and then kind of to an extent everywhere else as well. I've been really sore and like really achy. I've had some points where walking's been really hard. Definitely Friday and Saturday especially, I was really struggling to stand or walk around. So naturally I decided to help my husband try and put some flat pack together. Because that's what you do. When you're really in pain and standing is really hard, what you want is to be putting IKEA furniture together. But I was in too much pain, and then he got pissed off with it because it's flat pack, so we've decided to do that this weekend instead. Yeah, it was okay. It is what it is. It wasn't too unpleasant an experience, which is saying something. So yeah, I'm gonna try and be gentle with myself this week anyway, and see how it goes. We'll see if having a bullet journal helps. I've been pretty conservative in what I'm doing, but I was starting to get really anxious about coming to stream and not knowing what we were doing. So this fixes that as well, and it means that I'll hopefully worry less about that, and also feel that I'm still getting everything done. There's a couple of bits of like household paperwork stuff that have fallen by the wayside because I keep forgetting to do them. So this way they're written down somewhere, and hopefully that will then help. But yeah, we're gonna jump right in. I say jump right in. We've already been talking for 15 minutes. We're gonna jump comparatively right in. And I'm gonna get my notebook ready. I'm trying to make sure I bring the microphone back and forth with me. So we are reading 2 articles today, and both of them are about Hellblade. So both of them do discuss. I've gone to something white on my screen, so that's why I now look like a ghost. See, if that's something black on my screen, and that's something white on my screen. So they do discuss psychosis. They discuss those various symptoms, so hallucination, visual and auditory, and different delusions. Yeah, that's the main warning for these articles. They are both public, which is great because it means I can show you them like this, instead of needing to like do it down here and you not being able to see. This way, this makes it a bit easier. So I will give you the link to this article. Oh, because I'm trying to alt tab to something that's in another Chrome tab. This is the first one that we're going to be reading, and it is called, as you can see from the screen, Reducing Mental Health Stigma Through Identification with Video Game Avatars with Mental Illness. So this is like a lot of what my PhD is about. Let's be fair. I know it's interesting because I've already read it. I just haven't read it in a like intense note-taking kind of way. So it's going to be pretty easy. It's not going to be too bad at all. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So as always, and you might be sick of me telling you this by now, but I'm going to do it anyway, just for anyone who's new. When I take notes, I do them by hand, which is why we've got this little camera up there. I always forget which way around I've flipped myself. It's really small because the focus is on the article we're reading. I'm not expecting you to be able to read my notes when this image is this small. But I always write the entire title and all of the information I would need for citing the article. Because that means when I then come to do that citation, it's really easy. because all of the information I need is there. Or rather, when I come to put it in Zotero, which is where I digitize all of my notes and all of my references, that's really easy. This is a really long title. Yeah, look, all of those lines I just put there, and they've just been eaten up already. Because I've then got to get the names of all of these authors in. Okay, and this is, here we go, citation. And this was in Frontiers in Psychology. There we go. Oh, and the date, yeah, so as you can see, it only came out in September last year, so it's really current, and it's edited by Rachel Coet, who we've now discovered is everywhere because she's amazing, and was reviewed by someone at one of my former universities. So there we go. Right. This music is now slightly loud for me. Just drop it a couple of %. That's a bit better. Well, I've managed to full screen myself. Actually, I might do that. I might have that full screen. That makes a lot more sense. Oh, no, actually, no, because then if I need to look at something else, then it's going to be really unpleasant for you. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. So this is the abstract here, this first bit. So it's basically a summary of what they've done. Players either played the first 45 minutes of the game or watched gameplay footage of other participant sessions. That's really interesting from the perspective of immersion. Oh, excuse me. And the thing is that I know from watching people on Twitch that it can still be really immersive, more so than just watching a film, to watch a person play a game, because you see their reactions and like empathically feel their reactions as well as what's happening on the screen. But it still feels like a barrier to me, but then it's hard to get people to like playing the game requires certain equipment, doesn't it? So unless, especially if this study was conducted in 2020, they might have had pandemic related issues. So we'll see, though. I'm sure they'll come on to discuss that later. Also, I'm sitting forward, so we need to fix this. My posture is terrible. I'm gonna call posture on myself. Oh, actually, they've got... It meant that they could compare the people who'd played it with the people who'd watched it, so that's really interesting. Okay. Oh, sorry, I scrolled a bit too far. Why am I humming that? It's one of those things of my childhood that pops into my head periodically. Okay. So yeah, this is basically saying stigma is a problem. Attempts to reduce stigma have often had the opposite effect. So I just want to make a note of this bit about how we approach reducing stigma. Okay. Oh no. However I do this, I'm gonna have to do it like that, because then I won't actually be in the way of what we're reading. But again, let me drop the link in again, so you can follow along there if you need to. Especially if you need the text bigger. Video games may be uniquely positioned to deepen the connection with characters by placing the player directly into the body of a character with mental illness. Might it? Gosh, that's an interesting hypothesis. I think you could base an entire PhD around that. I'm so funny. That was sarcasm, in case you weren't sure. Video games may be uniquely positioned. Why am I leaning forward to take notes? Why is it taking notes where I'm like, I must hunch over here? I don't know. It might be the microphone, because I'm like, this is a big chunk of a microphone. It's not a small microphone. It's very heavy. It's very in my face right now. If I do that, then that's better. I can actually see it. Uniquely positioned. I'm going to continue writing because the rest of it's good as well. So it's thus, rather than merely observing a character with mental illness, the player identifies with that character. This is a long quote now. This is like a whole paragraph. Feeling their thoughts. Feeling their thoughts is an interesting phrase. And experiencing life through the character's lens. So, long quote there. Sorry, hand. Oh no, stats. One of the things I discussed in my supervision was that I need to go to a stats class. And I need to spend some time looking for them. Because the thing is that it's not that I need to become, oh good, my back's starting to hurt. It's not that I need to become an expert on quantitative methods or qualitative methods or the stats involved with data. But I do need to be able to understand them. So where in this it says the present study used an experimental design combined with structural equation modelling analysis, I have no clue what structural equation modelling analysis is. I wouldn't know how to analyse it. That's the kind of level that I need, is I need to be able to recognise and understand different modelling methods. Because at the moment it just goes completely over my head, and I want to be able to fully critique and utilise the stuff that I'm reading, especially with studies like this. So I think in order to do that effectively, I need to understand it. I might have to put my heated blanket on. It's just me checking in with myself and seeing how bad the pain is. Yeah, I think I do. 1 second. I'm not going to go anywhere because it's right down here. I present to you the heated cape. Are you ready for me to become so stylish? So this is like a heated blanket, but it's one that you wear. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, it ties around my waist to hold it on, but once I'm sitting on a chair, and then the chair will press it into my back anyway. And it's a really good way to get tangled in your cords. But it's also a good way to put targeted heat on your back in a way where you can still, like if I was doing this with my full-size heated blanket, it would be really awkward and in the way a lot, and it would be over a lot more of my body. This is targeted at my back and my neck and my shoulders. I just get to look real stylish. There you can see it's got a collar. I don't know if you can quite see that. You can sort of see that there. But I have it pulled quite far back right now, which is why the collar looks weird, because I want it to go down the whole of my back. And that's why I've not done this top button up either, because I don't know, I have quite a long torso or something. It's also going to look really weird on the green screen, so I'm sorry about that, but it will just look like I'm slightly fading into nothingness. Where were we? We were on that first. Okay. Oh, so this is talking about what stigma is, first of all. That's, I don't think I've ever actually looked into all of that before. So stigma signals or cues lead to the construction of stereotypes, leading to discriminatory patterns of behaviour. So someone sees someone with some signals like self-harm, scarring, or erratic behaviour, which cues stereotypes, which cues discriminatory behaviour. Okay. Stigma occurs when different components co-occur. Labelling differences, associating differences with negative attributes, separating the us from them, and status loss or discrimination. A stigmatised individual is recognised as being different and thus has stereotypes assigned to those differences. These can result in the stigmatised individual being discriminated against in various ways, including a desire from the non-stigmatised group to distance themselves from the stigmatised individual who makes up an outgroup. Okay. I'm not gonna write all of this down. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna note that on page 2 there is a good discussion and description of stigma. Do it that way, because otherwise I'd have to like quote all of this. Oh, you haven't got my I'd have to quote all of this. I realised that I might have been gesturing with my mouse at some point and you haven't been able to see my mouse pointer. Good work, me. Okay. Stigma can have incredibly damaging effects on the stigmatised individual. No shit. Loss of opportunities, including being fired. Released from employment is a polite way to put it, but I guess it's because you could be fired or you could be let go or asked to resign or that sort of thing. And then it gets internalised, yeah. Yeah. Since mental illness can be invisible, the stigmatised individual can shy away from behaviours that would mark them as a person with mental illness, which includes seeking professional help. Stigma stops people seeking help. You'll notice as well when I'm taking notes, I often write down like that statement, stigma stops people seeking help. I know that, but this means that I know that it's in this article as well. Like I'm not just writing down things that I'm learning from the article, but also literally what's there, because part of what my notes are there to do is be a reference in the future when I'm like, oh, I'm writing this section and I'm talking about stigma again and I need some stuff about stigma. I can then come back to here. And at that point I can look into it and look at all of the places that they're referencing to look at that. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm yawning so much today. Well, other than the, illness that all of my illnesses that make me chronically fatigued and prevent me from benefiting from sleep properly. But aside from that, it's aside from that. Okay, so there was a study that showed that mass media interventions could reduce prejudice because they looked at public service announcements. Why is this flickering? Okay, it's not now. Public service announcements, pamphlets and brochures, but not commercial entertainment media. Okay. Oh, this is really interesting. Cool. Research into the role of entertainment in reducing mental illness stigma has been linked. Yeah. Sensitive portrayal of mental illness leads to higher educational value and stigma reduction, but the positive effects only occur when the content is not stereotypical, otherwise it will increase stigma. Okay. This is top right. Ref studies. that looked at commercial mass media and stigma reduction. Portrayal must be non-stigmatizing or stereotypical. Cool. Yeah. Video games offer a unique avenue into the study of stigma reduction. Some researchers suggested that contact, even non-face-to-face contact with mentally ill individuals, can be effective in reducing stigma. Video games offer the opportunity to take contact further by handing the player direct control of the mentally ill character. Okay, so there's research about playing with a diverse group, but not about playing as a diverse group, basically. This is a theory I haven't come across before. This is so cool. Okay, transportation theory. It sounds like this is kind of a theory of immersion, so also described as narrative engagement or absorption. So this is Green and Brock. I'm gonna go down to this and put it in my reading list right now. Again, you can't see this. I'm just searching in my uni library. Is it the role of... Oh, I'm not logged in. That's why. There we go. And has it logged me in as the correct me? Oh god. Welcome. Yeah. Okay, yes it has. My old IT account closes soon, so I won't have this issue anymore. Role of transportation, the persuasiveness of public narratives. I am adding that to my reading list. Oh good. It involves stats. Right. So that's on my reading list now. Now obviously I don't stop to put everything in, but I think with things that are as big as that, that's really important. So, transportation occurs when a reader, viewer, or player disengages from the real world and cognitive abilities are devoted to processing the story world. The world within the story becomes so salient that the outside world falls away, while the individual focuses completely on the world created by the narrative. Transportation is an effective mechanism for creating attitudinal change. Ooh, that's a good phrase. Attitudinal change. The extended elaboration likelihood model, yeah, suggests that transportation into a narrative can result in positive responsive to embedded persuasive messages, particularly by suppressing counter-arguing against those messages. Okay. Those who become transported into a narrative surround themselves with events related to the target of stigmatization, thus forcing them to confront the nature of the stigma. Video games can be used as a simulation of the human experience of embodied cognition. Oh, I like this quote. What page are we on? 3. What is... Video games and embodiment? Hello? No. Nope. There we go. Is that not... Ah. It's not in the library. Oh no, it is. Hang on, it's there. Right. That looks very interesting. It's also gone into my reading list. Where was I? I was over here. And I was writing down on that as well. I got mostly excited about the word embodied appearing, to be honest with you. Since it's like one of the buzzwords for my PhD. Right. Oh, I'm so fucking sleepy, it's so annoying. Ugh. Alright, I'm starting to get annoyed at myself for how slow I'm going, which is my brain weasels being a problem. Of course it's okay to ask questions, Bionic Worm. Absolutely, you're very welcome to. Don't ever feel that you're interrupting me, because often it actually, I've said this before to people, it both helps me process what I'm doing and also actually helps me focus in a strange way, because it kind of makes me take a break that then allows my brain to then focus more on what I'm reading. So yeah, absolutely do ask questions. You're very, very welcome to. Okay, so their first hypothesis is playing rather than watching leads to an increase in transportation. Transportation is only possible when there is a narrative to explore. That's an interesting statement. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that choice of 45 minutes. I'm wondering... I'm especially interested in the fact that it's time-based rather than, like, position in the narrative-based. It makes sense because they're talking about, you know, you have the agency to explore the game in the way that you want to and play the game in the way that you want to. So it makes sense that they wouldn't force people to reach a specific narrative check mark. But 45 specifically is interesting. But then it could be something like they, I don't know, they had a like a limitation that's a logistical thing rather than a like a research choice. Like it could be to do with how long they have certain rooms available for the research, or you know, that sort of thing. Hopefully they mention it at some point, because that's something I picked up on as well. Transportation is so it's possible that there's in discussion of flow state, which is really similar to this idea of transportation, but subtly and importantly different. There are certain conditions you have to meet to hit flow state, and I think some of them might be time-based, or like there might be like a duration at which it's harder to hit that immersive state. And maybe they'll go on to say that, you know, transportation requires a particular amount of time, like something like that. Like there's all those studies saying that, like all the studies that the Pomodoro method is based on, like that the idea that you can only focus for a certain period of time. Yeah, I think the same thing. So I played through it on stream over the last few weeks, and the whole game took me 8 hours. So that's probably a bit slower than I would have done if I wasn't streaming it. It's also then slower because I was stopping to take notes a lot because I'm studying it, not just playing it. Yeah, 45 minutes wouldn't have gotten me very far in. And it was really the part that was really interesting for me in terms of how they represented her mental illness was how they developed your relationship with her hallucinations. And I feel like if you haven't gotten to the point in those 45 minutes where, for example, you've been in a fight and heard the voices saying, this one's too strong, don't parry, you need to dodge, or, you know, that sort of help that they give. You haven't had time to develop that relationship with the hallucinations. I worry that would detract from it. The interesting thing is I know they conclude that it has a positive effect on stigma reduction, so it obviously was a sufficient amount of time for them to see a change. But I wonder if they would see more of a change if, you know, that time had been longer, or it had been the entire game they'd let people play, or, I mean, that seems like a hard thing to achieve. Yeah, definitely it's something to watch out for as we go on. Yeah, so the reason I wrote down transportation is only possible when there's a narrative is that I think the definition of narrative is interesting, because I think there are games that have narratives that you don't necessarily think of as having narratives. I'm really struggling to think of an example now, but I think what I'm saying is that a game doesn't have to be an RPG to have a narrative. Yeah, that development's crucial. Senua's background is gradually revealed. The background of... Shit, his name's gone. Druth? There we go. is slowly revealed as well, and all the stuff about Dillian and her relationship with Dillian, and yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Yeah, in cases where narrative choice is not present, players still actively experience the story by leading the character along the journey. That's kind of what I was meaning. Journey is probably a good example of it, because there is technically a narrative, but not really. But there is. It's, yeah, that sort of puzzly game where there's a narrative framework to why you're doing all these puzzles, but it's Portal. Portal has a narrative, but you don't go through that game thinking constantly about the narrative. You're focused on the puzzles, aren't you? But it's still immersive. Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to remember. I'm interested to look at how far I was 45 minutes in, because I really don't think it was... I don't think I would have even gotten to the point where I'd gone into one of the after Cert or Valraven. I don't think I would even be at that point. I don't know. I wonder if they'll... I hope they mention like where it where it goes up to. Yeah. So this is saying you expand your self-concept to include the character's identity when you're identifying with the character. But in books and film, it's a dyadic relationship. Dyadic, I need to know the word dyadic. This is page 3. Yeah. So you can take the character's perspective, but you've always got that understanding that the character is a separate entity. I'm gonna have to put so the problem with this heated vest is that it's really warm because it's heated. So I then overheat. So I'm gonna have to put a fan on. I'm gonna be quiet for a second to see if my microphone picks it up. Hopefully it won't do. I don't think it does pick this fan up because it's pretty quiet. Okay, no, that looks okay. It might come through a little bit whilst I'm talking, but it's not too bad. Yeah, when the medium is interactive, the relationship between player and character is far closer in social distance. I feel like I should probably have this to reference as well. This was Klimt. The video game experience as true identification. Oh, yes. That is amazing. It's upset, I think, because where I pasted it in, it was the title was too long for the search box. That's true. I'm just gonna put that in. Let's see if that gets it. Ah, there we go. Found it. Yeah, so next... Oh, not next week. But the week after. I'm going to be stopping this sort of general read around and moving to focus on one particular thing so I can write it up. And one of the things I'd looked at doing for that is the player-avatar relationship. So that article is perfect because it's exactly what I'm going to be looking at. And yeah, so it's interesting that I'm going to write this down as well. Identification with the avatar presupposes that the player is transported into the story world in the first place.
is nothing more than a system of wires and circuits. It can show feelings only to the extent of which you program it to. It will be your friend, no more than the table you built it on will be.
I am slightly annoyed with Pretzel. That the instrumental only doesn't catch like lo-fi voice samples like that. Because I want no voice, like fully instrumental, no one singing, no one speaking, no one sampled speaking. But it doesn't quite do that. But it is really nice to listen to other music. Presupposes that the player transported into the story world. One of the things I want to look at, because this is especially interesting in relation to this game, is I want to consider whether there is a difference. I don't know if there's... It seems unlikely that there's been any studies done on this unless this study covers it, which I don't think it does because it only looks at this game. I'm curious as to whether first-person versus third-person perspective games, whether that makes a difference. So Senua's Sacrifice is third person, you can see her figure on the screen as you're running around. Tomb Raider is third person as well. Lots of games let you pick between the two. Some are just first person. And I'm interested in whether that has any effect. The really interesting thing is that there isn't, like, to use Senua's Sacrifice as an example, visually you are, and audially you are both first and third person, because you are seeing Senua's body in front of you, but you're also hearing her, everything she hears, and seeing everything she hears. So that's an interesting crossover, and that will be the same in every game, because otherwise it would be really weird, right? But it's especially relevant then because you're hearing her hallucinations and seeing her hallucinations. So I think it's definitely that blurring of first and third person is important and interesting. Okay, so their second hypothesis. Yeah. So there is some stuff done on whether customizable characters, I'm pretty sure, I think in the book I'm starting to read now, and there's been some mention of customizable characters allowing people to greater identify with the character they're creating. But I don't think there's been like direct looking at the difference between them, only like theoretical looking at the difference between them. I know that for me, I find it, this is just anecdotal obviously, I don't play games where you are forced to be a male protagonist, because I find it really hard to identify with... I grew up in a world where all of the narratives were male, and I had to really search out female narratives, and now narratives of non-binary people and gender fluid people and people who fall outside that traditional and transphobic binary, and I just can't do it now. If you don't let me play as a woman, or I think I'd be okay playing as a non-binary person or similar, I just don't want to. I just have no interest in it, and I find it hard to identify with characters then. I'm having to play some male protagonist games in order to do this research, which is going to be interesting. And I might have to mention that as a thing that could be detrimental to me playing. Like there's games that I would, yeah, but there's just so many more games where you can play as a bloke, right? I think you should just always be given the option, unless if it's a game like something like Last of Us, where you play as different characters. That I can do because I'm not solely in the narrative of a man. I'm in a world where I'm just temporarily embodying different characters, or Detroit Become Human does that as well. Like games that do that I'm okay with, as long as like it's good enough that I'm invested enough to go through that discomfort and disconnection, which with The Last of Us it was for me, yeah, and I think just having grown up with games that didn't let me do that, there's a reason that Knights of the Old Republic, the original RPG, is the game that made me love games, because I think it's one of the first games that let me play as a woman. I really think it is. It wasn't relevant in all of the games I'd played previously. The Sims let me play as a woman, but The Sims is a bit different. And like even in games, random games, everything was male. In like technically I think they were gender neutral, but Worms, which is a game I played a lot as a kid, which is literally you are worms trying to kill each other, all of the worms seem to be male to me. I realise this is a weird example, but even in things like that, I was never into like Nintendo based games, partly because I didn't have access to those consoles. I grew up with PCs and much later on an Xbox, but I never had any interest in getting to them, because all of the Zelda games, for example, were about Link, and some of the other games, like Final Fantasy games, I was never into, for similar reasons. And even those where you can swap between them more, all you ever heard about was the male narrative. So I've just been rambling about this for ages now instead of reading. But I think there's elements like that do make a difference. So I think customizable avatars do make a difference. Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think especially because I read a ton as a child, and I still do now. But like I really read a lot. I had really bad insomnia I've had really bad insomnia my whole life, and the way my parents had me deal with it was just read until you're tired. So I would read until 4 a.m. and I'd basically read at least one book a day for my whole childhood. And so many of those I'd managed to find female narratives and narratives that I was of girls and women that I was really attached to and really interested in. And it felt for a long time like games didn't provide that for me, but I really wanted them to. And yeah, at that point where you're searching for relatable role models, and I just didn't have a lot, certainly not that were diverse within themselves and were showing me different ways women could be. I think that's one of the really good things about book series like the Babysitter's Club and stuff like that, because they had so many female characters. They showed you all of the ways that you could be a woman, and that was really, really important to me. Yeah, because I wanted that as well as how to just be a person, because obviously you can have role models that are not your gender, otherwise, but you want to see yourself as well, you want to find yourself reflected in things. Okay. Right, I'm going to try and sit cross-legged. This might take a moment. Oh, God. My legs did not agree with that one. But we're here. It's really easy to knock the power button on this cape. I used to call it a vest, but my mentor thinks cape sounds more dramatic and impressive, so it's a cape now. Yeah, because it's like, I don't know if you can see that. It's just like a really easy to knock button. Okay, where was I up to here? I think I'm gonna have to come back to this a lot for a lot of their references. I'm gonna take a moment to write down. No, it's fine. I'm here to discussing things still helps me because it lets me think about it more and reminds me of things. There's studies done that show that passively ingesting information is not as effective for learning as actively using it. So for some reason, that's why I find taking handwritten notes makes a difference. I find talking about it whilst I'm doing it makes a difference as well. I'm going to take this information in better by having been distracted from it in a strange way. But I want to write down their hypotheses. Just so I've got them in an easily accessible spot. So we've got playing a video game rather than watching will lead to an increase in transportation. Oh yes, absolutely. The teaching other people things is one of the best ways to learn because you have to explain it. Thank you for the follow. Transportation will positively predict identification. So we've then got 3A, and I'm assuming there's going to be a 3B. Identification will... Oh yeah, there's 2. Cool, yeah, because they were saying that stigma is broken up into 2 parts, stereotyping and social distance. So this is identification. Oh, I didn't write 3A, I just wrote 3. Identification will negatively predict stereotyping. And 3B is that the desire for social distance from? Yeah. Okay, so we're now getting into their methods now, so we might get the answer to some of those questions now. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know this was a thing that's done. Participants were recruited from a subject pool at a large university in the southeastern United States. In exchange for their participation, individuals received course credit. That's interesting. The subject pool pulled from students in communication courses, including large introductory courses featuring students from a variety of majors. This is where I start zoning out because I don't understand the stats. Oh, this is really interesting. The majority were female. Okay. So it's interesting that up here it says a large university in the southeastern United States, and you feel like my instinct is, okay, that's because they're required to protect their subjects, so they're not allowed to say the name. And then here it's like was approved by Florida State University's International Institutional Review Board. Like, I think I know which university it is now, but I guess I don't necessarily. I guess it could be a different one, and then it was just externally approved. Yeah. Assigned to one of two conditions: treatment where they played a game, control where they watch someone. Okay, yeah. Oh, so it's interesting that watching it is the control, but that makes sense when they're comparing it to like the passive ingestion of media. This warning here, which is they're saying the first thing that was shown, this is the warning that's actually in the game. This bit here. The conditions were fully yoked, that is, participants who watched gameplay footage were watching recordings of other participants in the study. Therefore, there should not be difference in the amount of story consumed between the two conditions. Okay. Then this is just describing what the game is. Is that the other... Yes, it's referencing the other article we're going to be reading. Although, who knows if I'll get to both today. It may be that I don't. Because the thing with these studies is weird because it says 10 pages long. I think at least 2 of that is citations, and then we may end up skipping through things because it's stat stuff that I don't understand yet. Yeah, the game utilised binaural 3D microphones to give the illusion that the protagonist is hearing voices from different directions. That is something that we highlighted when we were playing through the game and wrote down. Because one of the things I'm looking at in my PhD is how technology and technological development has informed the ability of my different media types, because I'm not just looking at video games in my PhD. And a lot of them have had development in the ability to portray embodied mental illness by technological development. So in that instance, that microphone technology and sound technology, in interactive and visual novels, it's things like the RenP engine that allow people to put visual novels together with no coding knowledge, thus reducing the amount of third parties that are needed to develop games and making it more accessible to people who want to tell their own stories of mental illness. So yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, so they played the game on a PC in the lab for approximately 45 minutes with it recorded. Cool, it's just saying they randomly assigned that. Yeah, definitely. I really think a lot of the development can be traced to the internet, but also to how technology is developed as a whole. There's some so one of the other things that I'm looking at is fan fiction, which operates in a very different way to video games. But one of the reasons that fan fiction is interesting is the development of HCI and like the design behind fan fiction archives, which is done. So for example, the AO3, which is the Archive of Our Own, which is the biggest fan fiction archive right now, or the biggest in terms of users as well as number of archived stories. They are entirely folksonomically tagged, so user generated tags on all the stories, and there are studies have shown that there are some people who read not by fandom but by tag. So rather than being like, I want to read a Marvel fanfic, they'll go, I want to read a fanfic that is enemies to lovers, and I don't care what fandom it's in, even if I don't know the fandom. So it's really interesting in like how people access the media as the interesting thing for fan fiction, as well as a bit about how it's produced, even though the actual artifact, the actual material that you have isn't that distinct from standard fiction, but the way it's constructed and the way it's consumed is really interesting. I don't understand what this table means. I'm gonna do my best. Okay. Yeah, so it knows that difficulty can have an effect. I wonder what difficulty setting they had people play the game on. It must have been standard for everyone. It must have just been normal for everyone. But yeah, they are saying it's important to measure perceived difficulty, so I'm going to make a note of that. Being able to scale difficulty is actually one of the things that makes video games good for achieving flow state, because one of the things you need to be able to do is have like variable, personalizable, sort of reactive difficulty. So that's interesting. I feel like I'm just saying that's interesting a lot. This is all very interesting. If it wasn't, then I've picked the wrong PhD. I don't know. I don't understand any of this. Yeah, so it's actually noting players encountered relatively few enemies in the first portion of the game. Violent combat was part of the experience. This violence is a typical stereotype for those with mental illness, which may have implications for how the stereotyping variable behaved. To check for this, we removed one item from the model about those with mental illness being dangerous. This change did not alter the results. Oh, okay, so they did have that question, but then in presenting the results, they tested taking it out to see what happened. Okay. Playing a video game was associated with an increase in transportation. Those who played the game reported greater feelings of being lost inside the story world than did those who merely watched gameplay. Woo! I think the one problem with studying stuff that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to already is that it's quite satisfying to find that I'm proved right, but it's not surprising. I don't, it's not like I'm not really going into this not knowing what I'm going to uncover. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to uncover because I have almost 34 years of experience with all of these media, although I haven't been playing video games since I was born, so I guess I don't, but you know what I mean. A long time, a lot of my life. What was I about to write down? Those who played the game. Reported greater feelings of being lost. Yeah. Inside the, oh no, not inside the game, inside the story world. This feeling of being totally involved in the world of the story appears to have increased the connection players felt with the main character. Yeah, so these are all the questions they asked, so let's look through those, but I don't understand what the numbers mean, and I'm not going to. So there are various researcher training workshops offered at my university, and I'm constantly looking through to find one that's like stats for people who've never done data stats before. Yeah, it's not come up yet. So I need to do some more looking. I might try and find some like free other courses as well, or see if I can do things like get a Skillshare trial or have Skillshare for a month or whatever, and do it that way. Okay, so this is contact with mental illness, which is just gauging their closeness to it. Okay. If I do this, then we can see the others. It's really interesting that they've done numbers confuse and frighten me. It's frustrating because I want to, like, they'll have conclusions and I can understand the conclusions, but it's important to me that I understand how they've reached those conclusions, and that's the bit I don't have. It's not that this article is useless to me, it's just that I don't have the full understanding, which means that I can't identify potential weaknesses with how they've done it necessarily, which is something I'd like to be able to do, and something that potentially I could get brought up on in the future. I keep knocking this camera, don't I? Yeah, so this is those with mental illness are morally weak. Wow, what a statement. No, these are good because these are all the stereotypes is that of what we are as mentally ill people. What did I think about the game saying my save would be deleted if I failed too many times? So, it definitely made me anxious. Hold on. Oh, I don't know if you heard all of the cracking noises that my back just made. They were not pleasant. So I've never played Souls-like games before. So anything where, like, you die and that's it. I don't do Iron Man runs of games or trial of the whatever it may be called in any particular game where you can't save or whatever. I don't do playthroughs like that because I'm generally not playing games for the challenge of it. I like that the option is there for people who do play for the challenge of the game. So for me, it was something I was anxious about. One, because I don't like failing at things, because who does? But also, I was concerned about how long it was going to take me. Because obviously, if I can't finish the game that I need to play for my research, that sort of thing. I was worried about wasting time. Because I hadn't managed to dodge out of the way enough. And I did die several times by the time I got to the end of the game, because you've watched the game, so you probably know this. Anyone else who's listening, I'm about to spoiler the game, but I feel like that's happened already for most of today. So the further you get, the more you die, the more... Sorry, I've got to stop punching my microphone. The more the darkness on Senua's arm goes up her arm. When I finished the game, it was up to here, like about to go up her neck. Like, because also, I think 5 of those deaths, I was playing on easy, so I got more deaths. 5 of my deaths were in one fight. And I think partly because I just got pissed off and fed up. Is it not true? That's really interesting. That's so cool. Do you know why that's especially cool? There's no tutorial in that game. All of the learning you do is done from the hallucinations telling you. It definitely brought artificial anxiety to me. That's really interesting because the only time they break that, the only time they establish the fourth wall to tell you something about the game, in the game, is them telling you that thing. The only time they put anything on the screen that isn't Senua's, other than like your actually, no, there is no health or anything like that. It's, the only time they put anything else on the screen is that warning. That's so interesting. Well, then I can tell you it definitely worked. Granted, I do have chronic anxiety, like one of my mental illnesses is an anxiety disorder, so I'm probably an easy target. But yeah, it made me really anxious, and I panicked for her every time I saw that getting worse, and that now makes sense, because they were making me feel her panic. Yeah, definitely, it worked. I bet that pissed a lot of people off. I bet that pissed so many people off. Hang on, I'm gonna write that. Hang on, I'm gonna put that there. Actually, I've got a bookmark in this. Why am I not using the bookmark? Where are my notes on Senua's sacrifice? Because I'm just going to note this here. Hey, Tion Venus. I'm alright, thank you. Yeah, I'm in a bit of pain, which is why I'm wearing this fashionable cape. This is a heated cape, so it's heating my back, which is very painful today. But other than that, and being a bit tired, I'm not too bad. Right, let me just make this note. Game. All right. There we go. Back to the actual notes for today. Oh, I missed your question. Does the game not allow... I don't quite understand the question, T on Venus. Can you rephrase it? Sorry, that might be me. Might be my brain struggling today. No, it's totally okay. No, I phrase things badly all the time. No, they're deliberate. They want you to panic. They're deliberately making you panic because so basically the character believes she's cursed and being corrupted by a force called the darkness. She makes use of it at one point and then her hand turns black. Every time you fail in the game, so every time you die, the next time you come back, that darkness is further up her arm. So in fact, it's actively giving you information to make you panic, and it's because they want you to panic like she would be, to make you as immersed and transported as possible. And I hadn't realised it was fake, which Bionic Worm has just explained. So I'm going to have to look at that because that's super interesting. And the game has like developer diaries that I'm going to go through and read as that from where they were putting it together. So it's a really good game for studying for this sort of thing. Because of all the information that's out there about it, and because of how deliberate the way they designed it was. It's really useful for that. Oh. My phone would like me to take some medication, but I've run out of this medication because... skip. Do you want me to tell you why I skipped it? No. Oh, cool. There was a funny situation on launch where reviewers got to the message and immediately spread that it was permadeath. That's what I thought. I thought it was a Souls-like game. I'd read that and been told that. So it's really... I completely bought into that and was panicking on stream every time I died. But that's cool. I don't feel silly, because I like that it achieved what it was trying to do. No, that's really cool. Yeah, definitely. One of the things I found really good about the game in general is that one of the things they did was subverted video game conventions in order to achieve effects on you. That's a really good example of how they were doing that. Another, like the not having a tutorial and using the lack of tutorial as a way to create your relationship with the hallucinations was really interesting as well. I have loads of other examples that I wrote down as we were going. I can't remember them all now. Oh, T, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I have fibromyalgia. So the very short version, if any of you don't know what that is that basically my body can't interpret pain correctly, and thinks I'm in pain all the time, or thinks pain that I'm in is worse than it is, and it's like a full-on, my brain is wired wrong as we understand it currently. It's a really stigmatized illness, and also not very well understood, because not a ton of research has been done into it, or that research is biased towards like make them active, yeah, so I get all sorts of random pain for seemingly no reason. But that also means that because I can't always identify a source, I then worry about what the source is. It's rough. Thank you, Bionic Worm, and Yeah, I know. I've got a lot of other people I know deal either with fibro or with other chronic fatigue or chronic pain conditions. And yeah, it's rough. So it's really hard to get diagnosed with fibromyalgia, because basically there's no test that can say you have fibromyalgia for definite. There are things called tender points, which are points on your body that in fibromyalgia feel, and the best way I found to describe it is it's like I'm always bruised in those places, because when you press on them, they're incredibly tender, and it can sometimes be even brushing against those spots will be incredibly painful. That's one way, and basically the only way we know to identify fibro, and even then some other illnesses have that. But I've been in pain so I'm 34 this year, and my back pain started when I was about 18, 19. So I've been in pain for 15-ish years. And I got diagnosed last year. And that's partly because I ignored it for a long time. I tried going to doctors and I was dismissed without anything, or given painkillers and dismissed. I actually wrote a paper last year on gender in relation to chronic pain, because women, especially BIPOC women, are disproportionately, when they present with pain, sent to psychiatric help, which is awful, because it both says your pain is not real and also says mental illness is not real. Let's just send people off there if we don't know what to do with them, which is also bullshit. It's really hard, and it's great to have people who are willing to understand that the experience of chronic pain is very different to the experience of acute pain. Everyone feels pain. Actually, there are some conditions in which you don't feel pain, but for the most part, everyone feels pain. Whether, that's because of an accident or because of an illness that just manifested or whatever. Chronic pain is really different to a pain that you know is going to end. And it's really great to have people not respond to, oh yeah, I get back pain sometimes too, when it's like not chronic. Yes, yeah. So one of the things that sexism does, one of the many things that we can blame the patriarchy for, is it makes women feel less able to advocate for themselves, because the outcomes are generally worse. And that it occurs across all sorts of things. It's in medical advocacy like this. It's also one of the reasons that women are paid less, is because they feel less able to ask for pay rises. It's in all sorts of different things. But yeah, that's something that I uncovered. So basically there is a false rhetoric in medicine that women have higher pain thresholds because they are able to give birth. And obviously I'm talking about AFAB people, or, genetically female people here, not... so that can include people of any gender. That means that because of that pervasive belief, it means that trials aren't done in certain ways. Research isn't done into pain in women really to the same extent. No one looks at that difference. That pervasive belief is even worse for Black women, because it's based on, and I'm going to talk a bit about historical racism here, so if you want to mute for that, because it's hard for you or triggering for you, please do. There's in sort of especially colonial history, there is this belief of the Black woman as a sexual monster, and of that is attached to the belief that black women especially have higher pain thresholds, because they're seen as bestial and as just pumping out children repeatedly, because they're sexually deviant or sexually bestial. I don't mean bestial in the sense of bestiality, I mean in that sort of stereotyping sense, which is horrible. And literally you can go back and read things in the history of medicine. Hold on, there's someone at my door. I'll be right back. I'm really sorry. Hello, sorry about that. I had to receive 100 litres of straw mulch for my garden. But yeah, so there's that, and it's the horrifying thing is that you read all these things where doctors say things like, due to her bestial nature, the black woman is able to withstand larger pain. And I'm not making that wording up. I'm really not. And then you'll read the dates on it, and it will have 19 at the start of it. And it's just disgusting. It's really horrible. And that is why one of the many ways in which medicine is racist. It's also why BIPOC people have less trust in doctors, because they have experiences like that, and why women have less trust in doctors, and especially BIPOC women. And it's utterly horrible. And I felt really uncomfortable researching that article that I wrote. And yeah, there's so many things that we've done that are in retrospect horrific. I mean, it was the 90s before we stopped electrocuting people to make them sane. Like, it's still done in some instances, and it's often done in a better way now, and like with informed consent, and in a more controlled and humane way, as much as electrocuting someone ever can be. But it's disgusting. I'm just angry now. The terrifying thing is when you realise how not very long ago it was. Oh, so BIPOC is, and it's the most inclusive term I know. In the UK, we have BAME, which is Black and Minority Ethnic. BIPOC is a more American term, but it's Black, Indigenous, and people of colour. So it's an inclusive term for people of colour that makes the separation between those identities clear, whilst also making it clear that they have similarities in their experience, in the same way that Black and Minority Ethnic in the UK attempts to do that. The problem with those terms is that they're never going to be good, because there are thousands of different identities. It's like one of the problems with all the stereotypes around Asian people is that we say things like Asian people when that is so many different origins and identities and so diverse, and they get lumped together, and that means that people don't see that diversity, which then only serves to exacerbate stereotype. So it might seem we've gone off topic but from this article, but actually really everything we're talking about is stereotypes and the power that stereotypes have to enforce stigma, and how severe an effect that can have, right? It's pretty nasty. But these results did not hold for stereotyping, which is another critical aspect of stigma. Yeah, so basically this is saying that people indicated less need to separate mentally ill people and to keep social distance from them. The measurement for social distance did not specify a diagnosis, indicating that playing as a character with this illness helped with perceptions of mental illness overall, so that's really cool. Yeah, and that it occurs at every level of medicine. It's in like direct first line treatment, it's in social services, it's in research and how research is done. There are biases in research, which is not necessarily like individual researchers being biased, although that certainly happens as well. There are biases in like the body of work as a whole. So in video games, for example, there are significantly fewer studies like this that look for the positive outcomes of video games. There are thousands that look for how video games are bad for you, why video game addiction is a thing. It's not, by the way. Not really. Not in the way that people say it is. It's not a thing in and of itself. Like many addictions, video game addiction is a symptom of a wider problem. And video games themselves are not like... It's not like alcohol. It's not physiologically changing you to desire the thing. Yeah, modern medicine neglects the spiritual component of well-being, and doing so creates room for so much misinformation. Yeah, there is an amazing book, which I have down here. I just need to remind myself of the name of the author. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce the name right. So this book is called The Scalpel and the Silver Bear. I've recommended this like 8 times on the stream. I'm going to keep recommending it. It is by an indigenous doctor who attempts to reconcile her native beliefs with modern Western medicine. And it goes through all the challenges she has, and it is an amazing, beautiful book. So I would really recommend it. In fact, I'll find it and link it for you all, because it's so good. I'm cryptically gonna link you the Penguin Random House Canada version because I don't want to link you to Amazon. This is the book. It's by Laurie Arvizo Alvord. Yeah, it's called The First Navajo Women Surgeon Combines Western Medicine and Traditional Healing is the subtitle. And it's so good. It's so good. I read it last year. Well, if you're Canadian, then I've just inadvertently lucked out. But yeah, so it's a really good book, and I'd really recommend it for like thinking about how to overcome those barriers, but also understanding how big they are and what they do. This is another thing I've talked about on stream before, but I went to a lecture about medicine in Ghana, and they were talking about how when someone comes back from the hospital, all of the women of the village will walk to the house bringing food and water and everything the person needs to be cared for, either by their family or by other people. And they will sing the whole time they're walking there, and they will sing all the time that they're in the house and putting out the food and helping with changing beds or whatever it might be, with caring for the person, with giving them everything that they need, not just the medical stuff that they need. And they will sing all the way out as well. And I just, that is the thing that's missing in so much of medicine, because we feel like we don't have time for it, or in certain countries it's not profitable. I think if you look at the history of medicine, or so the field I'm in is the medical humanities, which does a lot of work looking at this sort of thing, and my life completely changed last year, the year before, last academic year, because I did a master's degree in creative writing, and I was able to pick one optional module each term. So you did a writing module and an optional module each term. This was a taught master's degree, and I looked through the list and I went, oh, medical humanities, what's that? I've always been interested in medicine, not least because of being chronically ill for most of my life. I wonder what that is. And I read the description. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll go and do that. That'll be something really different, and it'll give me a contrast to writing, because at that point I was like, writing, I want to be a writer, this is the thing I want to do. I was already a published author at this point. And I got into that class and I discovered that I absolutely loved it more than anything I'd ever studied before, and I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing it, and now I'm doing a PhD. So that one module has completely changed my life. My PhD supervisor is the person who ran the module. So yeah, it's amazing how by chance it's made such a difference to me, because I don't know where I would be if I hadn't found that module. Who knows? But yeah, let's get back to reading, because otherwise I'll never finish. We're not going to get the second article done today. It's okay. Don't apologise. I feel better for having had this discussion, because I was starting to struggle with the reading a bit, and also I think we're almost done. So I wanted to write down that the part of the I've taken the cape off, but I'm still overheating even with the fan on. Temperature regulation is another thing that my body struggles with. I just don't do well in extremes of temperature, which you'd think would be fine living in England, but unfortunately, global warming. It's going to be 21 degrees here. This is Celsius, obviously. I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's March. It was 7 degrees 2 days ago. No, I know. I know it's something like, it's vaguely 3.5 times or something. I don't know. But then it does weird things when you get below 0. Okay. Less desire reported for social distance. Also, it's really funny that this article is talking about social distance in a completely different way to the pandemic. Oh no, we don't get a lot of snow here, and that's partly because I live relatively near the coast, so we get really cold winds, but won't tend to get a lot of snow, because it won't have gotten cold enough when it gets to us, or it will have warmed up too much or whatever. And but despite that, we always get some snow randomly in April. I've lived here for 4 years, and it always snows randomly in the middle of April. Freezing is 0 in Celsius, yeah. And the boiling point of water is 100. Oh, this is interesting. Identifying with Senua was not associated with changes in held stereotypes about mental illness. This is a somewhat counterintuitive finding, since stereotyping is often found to be easier to shift than the desire for social distance. Oh, Jesus. That's unnecessarily complex. I feel less bad for not understanding it now. That's why whenever I need to know, I just Google it. Like, but yeah, I always get surprised by the sudden snow in April, because I'll have like started doing stuff in my garden, as evidenced by the 100 litres of straw mulch that just arrived, and then suddenly it will snow. Yeah, we had some snow. We had some snow in February. Actually stayed for a reasonable amount of time this time. It was nice because we didn't have to go anywhere, so it wasn't a worry. I did had to leave the house once to go. I basically only leave the house right now to go to the pharmacy to collect my medication. Partly because I can't walk very far at the moment. And that's just around the corner, so it's the only walk I can do. And doing that when it was a bit icy was a bit scary. I've only seen snow in person maybe 5 or 6 times, yeah. I mean, it was weird because we kind of didn't get a lot of snow growing up, but I also have this really vivid memory. So I grew up in the countryside, and the road we lived on, I lived in the middle of nowhere. There was a village, and then we were off on the edge of it in a hamlet. And our house was completely surrounded by fields. In front of it was just fields. The road that we were on was set down from those fields, so you had these big banks either side of the road, like 6 or 7 feet high. So one year we got a load of snow, and obviously the snow in the road doesn't settle too much because it gets driven over and stuff. But then overnight, after we'd had a lot of the snow, it was really windy, and it blew all of the snow off the fields into the road, to the point that my brothers and I burrowed through the snow down the road. That is the most snow I've ever seen. And there was nothing left on the fields at all because it had all gone into the road. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. I get really excited by snow, and I think it's because I've never seen as much of it. I'm sure if I lived like in one of the really snowy parts of Canada, or in like a Nordic country or similar, I'd be less excited. Actually, probably also my feelings about it, if I need to go out, will change now, because like my walking stick, which I can't reach right now, I'm not going to bother, has like a rubber grip on the bottom of it, but even that was just not happening. And I get when my pain or aches are bad, I get like muscle weakness, so I get really unsteady, or yeah, on my feet, not quite there, so yeah, okay, what was I doing? Oh, that's a good idea. So you've sort of made it into like a snowshoe, effectively, for the cane. Yeah, I've got friends that live in Texas, Bionic Worm, and it was real scary. Real scary. No, it's all right, T. You're totally fine. I'm just trying to find the bit that I was about to write down, because I want to write down this thing about stereotyping not improving. Okay. So stereotyping didn't improve. A possible explanation is that when individuals incorporate a character's attributes, in this case mental illness, as part of their own self-concept through identification, this expansion of the self to include the other in the in-group does not necessarily limit the possibility of stereotyping that new perception of the in-group. In other words, even though participants can take on Senua's thoughts, attitudes, and behaviours as though they were the players, they may still stereotype their own self-concept. But interestingly, removing the items related to violence didn't change the overall model, indicating that something other than violence is driving the stereotyping result. Oh, okay. I think it's also especially interesting with the study that to think about the age range, because it's 18 to 35 with a mean of 20.4 or something. And that's really interesting because I think that generation is going to have been taught a lot more about mental illness than even I'm at the upper range of that. But I didn't know what mental illness was until after I developed one. I had a panic attack before I knew what a panic attack was, because it just wasn't discussed, it wasn't talked about. And I grew up with my dad has depression. I don't have any contact with him now, but so I grew up exposed to that, but it wasn't talked about in those terms. And even though I developed symptoms quite early on, so like in my from puberty, basically, that sort of age, so 11, 12, I didn't know what it was. Yeah, it's just like, Dad just sulks a lot in his office. Which is genuinely... The problem with that is that I then learned to react to things by hiding away and sulking in my office, as it were. But I didn't know that what was happening to me was abnormal. I didn't talk about it at all. When it got worse, I hid it because I didn't think either that something was wrong, or I might have known something was wrong but didn't, think it was a thing that should be talked about. Like it should be hidden in the office along with me. So yeah, it's a complicated thing. Okay, transportation into the narrative appears to be a strong predictor of identification, which is something that's been shown previously, but it's not on average particularly high. Okay. This is still page 7, that's fine. Yeah, it's not a particularly high amount that it predicts it, but even that low level is associated with lower levels of desire for social distance. So if you had something that was even more effective, then, like, for example, playing the whole game, like we were talking about before, like if you played the whole thing rather than just 45 minutes of it, I bet those numbers would differ. Yeah, and it could also be related to the control group. So, So transportation does predict identification, not to huge degree, but even... Oh, thank you, T.
Venus cried X3 happy tears.
Thanks, T. You too. But even this caused... Oh, I pulled my thing towards me. Okay. Yeah. So the results of this story hold critical theoretical implications, particularly in the realm of mental illness stigma, whereas some preliminary work has begun to explore the role of entertainment media in stigma reduction. The current study extends this work by explicitly focusing on video game contexts. In essence, playing narrative-heavy video games seems to be a potential method to reduce social distancing, mainly through engagement and identification. And again, social distancing, not in the pandemic context, but in the sense of like wanting to be far away from people who have the experience of mental illness. There are also implications for the study of entertainment media in narrative processing. Yeah, talking about the unique ability of video games to foster sense of transportation and identification offers an important step in further explanation of video games for social good. Yay. Which again is especially impactful because of what I was talking about earlier, which is that bias in video games research of looking for addictions and bad things and negative outcomes as opposed to looking for positives. But it's important to not that doesn't lean over into becoming toxic positivity instead. We don't want it to turn from looking at how video games are evil to looking only at how they're good and ignoring that they can have negative outcomes as well. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. But I think in order to push back against that video games are evil, you've got to look at the goodness first and then start tempering it out a bit as you go. Right. Practical implications. I think this is probably the last page, yeah. So one of the interesting things about this study is that it takes it as read that this is a good portrayal of psychosis, which I think it is. But they don't really query that at all. The idea that whether it's a good or bad representation. It's also important to mention that some players are interested in watching others play video games. Are they? I've never heard of that. I don't think people would do, would really do that. Oh my god, these studies that are referenced. Okay. Casual players were found to prefer watching professional gamers rather than playing the game themselves. If the players show skills during the game and prove to have professional or expertise game-related skills, they'll have a more enjoyable experience. This may not... I don't think that's true. Like, there are some times where I want to watch people that are professional level players, and I derive enjoyment from that, but I also derive enjoyment from watching people who are just normal games or bad or whatever. Given that the game in question is the competitive type of game not usually shown in I guess proportionally you get more people. Actually, I don't know. I'd be really interested to know like the numbers behind Twitch and whether people watch competitive style PvP games, whether that's Fortnite or League of Legends or I don't know, Call of Duty, anything like that. Whether that gets watched more numbers wise than narrative driven games or other kinds of games like constructive games, like the creative games like Minecraft or Space Engineers or that sort of thing. I'm gonna make a note of this because I think that's something I've been thinking that I might end up mentioning Twitch in my PhD, and this is an interesting thing because I disagree with what they've taken here. Okay, so page 8. Notes about watching games. But I could be wrong, like numerically, right? If like I know the kind of numbers that League of Legends pulls, and they're pretty intense. But then over, like, there are so many variety streamers and people, like, I can't possibly have an image of the whole of Twitch. So I think I need numbers on it to understand. I wonder if Twitch has ever published anything like that. They might well have done, because it's really interesting. Hang on. Notes about watching games versus playing. Says games watched are mostly competitive. Is this true? Yeah, I'll have to go. I'll put Twitch numbers and a question mark, and then I'll remember to go and look at that, because that's not going to be a thing to look up quickly. Yeah, no, this is all conclusion, so it's kind of just repeating it in a nicely wrapped up way. Oh yeah, this is interesting. It's saying that it might be good. The game might be effective because it's not designed to reduce stigma primarily, because it's designed to be a game first and reduce stigma second. Yes, I think there is a big divide between watching for gameplay and watching for the streamer. So to use the example of League of Legends, because it's the competitive scene that I follow, I have tried to watch some of the players stream, because a lot of them stream as well for an additional revenue and whatever. And mostly I don't like watching them. Not because they're not, nice people, or because their gameplay is bad, because obviously if I thought their gameplay was bad I wouldn't follow the league as a whole, but mostly they have typical male gamer chats, and also typical of League of Legends chats, which is to say it's not moderated, it's full of sexism, racism, transphobia, they're generally unpleasant places to be. Everyone's spamming Pepe emotes constantly. Pepe emotes are banned here, by the way, if you I've now actually just put it in as a banned word, so you can't use any emote with Pepe in the name, because if you're not aware, the Pepe emotes were co-opted by the alt-right and are massively associated with horrible Nazism level ideologies. So yeah, and it's a really big thing in the League of Legends community. And some of the people I do watch stream League of Legends still allow that. Like, they're better places to be. But I wouldn't watch a lot of those streams for the streamer. So I just watch the competitive scene. All of the streamers that I watch, for the most part, I am watching primarily for the streamer, secondarily for the gameplay. You know, that I won't watch people play games I'm not interested in. I'm not at that level of watching for the streamer, but I do sometimes get introduced to games that I didn't know I'd be interested in because I've tried watching them when a streamer I like is playing. As an example, I don't play horror games because I'm anxious enough on my own. I don't need a game to induce it. But I will watch some of the streamers that I follow play horror games because I've discovered they're not actually that bad for me to watch. I don't think I'd be able to play them, like Dead by Daylight, for example. Yeah, that's there's definitely a difference there and a divide in how people behave. And I'd be really interested to see what research there is about Twitch, because I bet you there isn't much yet. Or it's really generalized, or it'll be demographic based, because that's where a lot of things start, is demographically, before you then look at behavioral models. But yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah, this is saying the game is successful because it's a game to bypass reactants, which I think is like resistance to anti-stigma campaign. There are limitations. Participants who don't often play video games may have found it challenging. The game does not have a dedicated tutorial and does not show participants how to use controls or where to go, so there might have been some confusion. They used a student sample, not a generalised population. Population? Oh, here we go. We've gotten an answer to our question. Finally, participants in the study only played the first 45 minutes of the game. This was done to ensure that even beginning players would be able to pick up the story and the game's controls. However, this represents only the beginning of Senua's journey, which seems her come to terms with her own mental illness towards the end of the game. Effect sizes may have been larger had participants undergone the entire journey with Senua. Thus, future studies should vary the character's progression, possibly exploring both self-acceptance and self-stigma through the character, as these different types of journeys may have an impact on stigma reduction. Yeah. So they don't explain why they picked 45 minutes. Like they've done to ensure that even beginning, I guess it gets challenging later on with the combat, so they don't want them to get too far into being challenged by it and some of the gameplay mechanics, because where it's cool that gameplay mechanics are like messed with and subverted in the game, if you don't know what the conventions of games are, you're not gonna see that or be affected by it. So yeah, I'll just make a note that on page 8 discusses the 45-minute thing. Yeah, I bet it is limitations on space and time, because if they had 200 people going through it, like you can't up that by much more, because the study's going to have limitations on funding and so forth. So and that's it. This is all just ethical statements and references. And that is le done. So I'm gonna move us back over here. What's oh I was like, what's that we can see there? Oh, it's my walking stick. Hi Sahinia, I'm so sorry, I'm just about to go. We've had a thank you. We've had a lovely stream. We've done reading of an entire article, which has been super interesting. And it's one I've read before, but we were sort of reading it in full. Yeah, Bionic Worm, go ahead. I'm very happy to. I'm not going to go right this second. You don't apologise for being late. No, I started early today, and also I don't normally stream on Mondays, so it's not like there's a set time or anything. Whilst that question's coming in, I will remind you that I'm going to be here on Wednesday, but I'm not going to be here on Friday because that's a bank holiday here in the UK, and I'm going to attempt to not work on bank holidays. We'll see how we'll see how much I succeed with that, whether that happens or not. But especially with having been in a big long flare, I want to try and make sure that I rest. Remember you showed your list of media at the beginning, but you didn't see all of it. Oh, I'm very happy to take game suggestions. Yes. What is it? And I'll add it to my. We can look at it, and I can add it to my list of games to look at if it's not already there. I'm absolutely happy to take game suggestions. So other kinds of media I'm looking at are graphic novels, fan fiction and transformative works, artist books, interactive and visual novels, and role-playing games, like tabletop role-playing games or LARP. Those are all the things I'm looking at, and I'm always happy to take suggestions for any of them, because I don't actually know every video game in existence. I realise that's hard to believe. Night in the Woods. Ooh, hang on, I'm gonna Google it. Oh, that art looks so cute. Do. Ooh. Okay, yes, this is going on my list. This is definitely going on my list. Thank you. I'll put that on there. And what I've also been doing is I've also been putting them on my Steam wish list, because then I can pick what I'm doing when based on what's on sale when, because I don't have a need to look at them in any particular order otherwise. And this way, it's a way of deciding that. Oh, it was nominated for a BAFTA as well. Cool. Right, that's on my wish list now. Excellent. Sometimes, okay, so I've opened it on Steam. So I've got Steam's "Is this game relevant to you?" Similar to games you've played. Life is Strange. That I can understand from having read the description of this game. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. What? How is this game like Tomb Raider? What the fuck? Is it because they've both got female protagonists? Is that it? Yeah, like that's a strange. Players like you love this game. Awesome, thank you. That's super cool. So yeah, I'm gonna what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of today is I might try and read that other article, I might not. It depends how I feel. I'm starting to get really achy and tired now. So we'll see how it goes. And tomorrow I'm gonna do some other reading. I'm gonna do some like admin-y bits. I have therapy tomorrow, so I won't be doing a huge amount tomorrow. And on Wednesday on stream, we're going to be putting together my presentation for next week. So I'm giving a presentation in the first year PhD showcase at my university. I'm giving a presentation basically like an overview of my PhD. It's all written, like the script for it is written, but we just need to make the slides for it and work that out. So that's what we'll be doing on Wednesday. And then that will be my last stream this week, because I'll be doing more admin stuff on Thursday because it's the first of the month, so I have to write up my what I've done this past month of my supervision. I'm gonna play one of the games off stream then, yeah, work through some stuff then. But I will see you on Wednesday. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for chatting. Yeah, thanks, Bionic Worm. It's been lovely to talk to you, and I hope all of you have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely Tuesday. And I will see you at 10 a.m. BST, not GMT anymore, because I have moved an hour into the future because of stupid daylight savings time. Sorry. I'm trying not to say the word stupid because it's kind of ableist. I apologise for that. It's a really strong habit of me to use that word in particular. Ridiculous daylight savings time. So all of my times are at BST now. So if you don't observe daylight savings time, congratulations, but also the stream may be at a slightly different time for you. So yeah, I'll see you then. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in a couple of days. Bye.